Ryan at the Armstrong Auditorium. It is just, I have to say, you guys are one of the warmest, most attentive audiences that I play for anywhere in the world. And we were talking about something earlier today, and I was like, he's like, you really know what fuel you need before a concert. And I said, well, I have literally played 10,000 concerts on 6 continents since I first started touring when I was 16. So when I say you're one of my favorite audiences, like, I really know what I'm talking about. And thank you. Thank you. And this is also an incredible treat for me because I have only, since the pandemic started, my first concert that had anyone in the audience was last week because I was supposed to play in Korea, and so I did it with maybe 10 people in the audience, and they live streamed it to Korea. So this is really like my first real concert in front of an audience. And it has been actually a year and 10 days since my last concert, which is the longest I've gone since I was 5 years old without a concert. I mean, by 5, I was playing at least 1 concert a month, So it was, I have missed you all so, so much. It's just, thank you. So that was my arrangement of Porgy and Bess. I have always loved Gershwin so much, and I also feel like with the piano, you have basically the equivalent of an orchestra. And with the cello, you have the equivalent of a singer, because all the notes in the cello are within the human voice range. And we have such a huge range that, unlike the violin, we can play like the female voice, and we can also play the male voice. So I love in like Bess, you is my woman. I start off and I'm Porgy, and then I switch to Bess. And it's so great to be able to play both sides of that love affair. And so I always wanted to arrange this piece, and so I just thought, why the heck not? Let's do it. So, and now the next piece we're going to play for you is by a very, very special musician that some of you may know, Ryan Malone. And he's going to talk to you about his piece, which is absolutely adorable. I love it.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, this is a piece I wrote for my son, Seth. He plays cello, and to play with our youth orchestra in his senior year at high school. We did this a couple years ago, and I sent the recording to Sarah, and she said, well, if we ever do a North and South America program, we have to put your piece on there. So it's full of a lot of youthful energy, 3 basic melodies, 2 are very fun and youthful, and one's more melancholy, and just shows off the cello, I think, really well. So thanks for doing it.
And there's one spot where when we were first playing it, I thought to myself, this reminds me of Edmund. And so listen and see if you can figure out the spot where I was thinking of that. It's just, all of a sudden it's very pastoral, and you just see this beautiful land, and it's sunny. It's just so nice. You were saying it was your Spielberg moment.
There's a melody in here. There's a part of it that's like the beginning of a movie when they move into the suburbs, and all the hopes and possibilities of like suburbia and small town life or whatever. And so you said you thought of Edmund. So so this is for Edmund.
So the next piece we're going to play for you is sort of a bridge from Spain to Latin America. Enrique Granados was a Spanish composer, and this Orientale that we're going to play for you, I think is just so beautiful, but it's sort of like he's reminiscing backwards. It's, even though it was written in the early part of the 20th century, it recalls a world of Spain of the previous century, of a certain like a fragility. It's almost like he's missing it. He's like longing for that past age, you know? And it's really interesting because just at the time that he was writing this, music was changing dramatically. Just after he wrote this, which really feels rooted in the 19th century, then Stravinsky wrote The Rite of Spring, which like propelled us into almost the 21st century. And so it was really interesting because he's like the last vestige of a bygone era. And so I love playing this piece because it makes me feel like for a moment I get to time travel. And it's also, he's sort of the foundation, in a way, of all the Latin composers that come after, that we're going to play for you in this set of Latin pieces. Thank you. Isn't that just beautiful? It's like a little jewel. Yeah, it was originally written for 2 guitars. But I remember hearing it as a little girl thinking, I've got to figure out, if no one's arranged it, I'm going to arrange it. Because I just thought I could hear that melody in the cello and the piano doing those beautiful moving notes. So the next piece that we're going to play for you is by, he is a Catalan, great composer and cellist, a protege of Pablo Casals. His mother was Puerto Rican, so we're getting into Latin America at this point. And Gaspar Cassadó was just a brilliant cellist. You can tell because he's written a bunch of music for cello. Even he's written a trio, which my trio, Eroica Trio, plays. And the cello parts are just insane. It's like the guy must have just been a monster on the instrument. But it's like incredible. But at the same time, it's just so filled with Spanish and Latin flair. It's like unmistakably this incredible Latin passion and beauty. Actually, Ryan was saying that he saw a master class with a pianist who had played with Cassadó this piece, and he said,
flirtatious conversation.
Yes.
Well, yeah, it's Benjamin Zander had the master class with the composer, and he said this means flirtatious conversation, and then the student said, well, isn't this a little wild for that? He says, not for Spaniards.
Thank you. You can really hear the bullfighters and the flamenco dancers, right? So fantastic, so much fun. So the next piece that we're going to play for you is by the great tango master, Astor Piazzolla. It's, I think, one of the most beautiful melodies I've ever heard in my life. It originally was written, actually, interestingly, for oboe and orchestra for the score for a film called Henry V, an Italian film. But the second I heard it, I just fell in love with it. And so first, my trio, we did a trio version, but it was haunting my dreams. Every night, it would be in my dreams over and over. And so then I arranged it for cello and piano, and it still was haunting me. And I was like, how am I gonna get this out of my head? I gotta get a good night's sleep at some point. And so then I arranged it for cello and orchestra, and that's actually on my latest recording with the Royal Philharmonic. I recorded both the next two pieces that I arranged also for cello and orchestra with Elgar Concerto and a New American Concerto. And I just think, it is beautiful on the oboe. I mean, it would be beautiful on trombone quartet, for gosh sakes, It's just so beautiful. But I am a little biased. I think it's the most beautiful on the cello. This is Oblivion by Astor Piazzolla. And it's actually not a tango, it's a milonga, which is the popular song form of the pampas, of the plains. So instead of the urban hustle and bustle of a tango, you hear this like wide open spaces. you. Isn't that beautiful? Ugh, it's just so haunting. You can understand how I just couldn't get a good night's sleep when I first heard it. It just kept going in my head. So the last piece we're going to play for you before intermission is probably Astor Piazzolla's most popular and famous piece. It's really interesting about the human spirit. So he was a very strong critic of the fascist government in Argentina. And he was commanded by Perón to write a tango because before Piazzolla, the tango was just this sort of bar music that was never in a concert hall. And it sort of grew up in the interesting combination of the immigrant groups that were in Buenos Aires. So it was somewhat German marching band, which is very surprising, right? But that's where that bandoneon comes from, is from the German marching band. And then Spanish, of course, and then African rhythms. And that's how the tango, that mix, and that it was just sort of the thing that they would play in bars, like you would have a group just playing it. And so Piazzolla is the one who brought it from the brothels and bars into the concert hall. And they called it Tango Nuevo. And it ignited a huge tango craze across the world. And so Perón commanded Piazzolla to write a tango in celebration of the great Peronista government. And Piazzolla was really conflicted because he didn't want to write anything that would celebrate the fascist government because he was absolutely everything about it. So he wrote this piece, Libertango, Freedom Tango, and he put everything that he loved about the human spirit and about the joy of freedom and freedom of expression and the antithesis of what fascism stood for. And he put it into this piece. And this piece became so popular. Very soon afterwards, he had to flee Argentina. But it became so popular that actually there are more than 500 recordings of this piece the last time I looked, when I was researching it, from everywhere from, like bandoneon to orchestra versions to Grace Jones did a singing version of it, like in a pop in like the 80s or something, which was actually very cool. If you ever get a chance to hear it, you should listen to it. It's really interesting. But, and so it just, to me, it's such a testament to the universality of the human longing for freedom and joy, and how we all just immediately, it lifts our spirits. So this is Libertango, and I actually have written a original cadenza to start it because it's sort of a prayer for me to humanity. And so this is Libertango by Astor Piazzolla. So this piece that we're going to play for you next is by the American composer Samuel Barber. And he wrote some of the most beautiful melodies that anyone has ever written. I'm sure even if you don't know the name of it, I am sure that if the second you heard the Adagio for strings, you would recognize it. It's been used in like so many films like Platoon. It's so heartbreaking. And he had this extraordinarily inspired and prolifically creative period of time, just as he was at Curtis Institute of Music, which is where I went first when I was 16. He was studying there as a composition student, and he wrote a series of pieces, all of which were just astonishing for a teenager to be writing. And this sonata is one of them. Just his last year at Curtis, he wrote this piece, and he ended up winning the Pulitzer Prize. But he also wrote the Adagio for strings, which is just one of the most beautiful pieces you'll ever hear. If you haven't ever heard it, I recommend just going to YouTube and trying to hear it, because it's so beautiful and so short. He wrote the Violin Concerto, which is stunningly beautiful. He wrote Dover Beach. And this was all like just before World War II, and then just into it as well. And he just wrote piece after piece, and it was just extraordinary, because it was as if he just came out of nowhere. This like small town boy, he comes to Curtis, and something just awoke in him, and he just had this extraordinary. I'm just amazed sometimes when I play this piece that someone so young could be such a master and create really this new language, but it's so lyrical and so instantly accessible. And so this is the Barber Sonata. It's Opus 6, which means it's just the 6th piece that he wrote and then was published. So it's just kind of, I just find it astonishing, because a lot of these other pieces that we've played for you, they were in the height of their powers, when they wrote them. But this is really, and you hear the youth. I have a funny story about this piece. When I did the Tchaikovsky competition in Russia, and it was in 1986, and so it was still the Soviet Union, and there still was the Iron Curtain. And after I won, there was this recital that I gave right after in Moscow. But my pianist, who I had brought for the first 2 rounds, the whole competition takes over a month. It's literally like a stamina endurance test. It's just unbelievable how much music you have to play and how long it takes. I mean, my first round, I was on stage for almost 2 hours straight, just my round. And in fact, in that first round, while I was playing a Bach suite with my eyes closed, thank the Lord, a Klieg light above me exploded and rained glass down on top of me. But I didn't notice because I was so focused. I had been aiming toward the Tchaikovsky competition since I was 16. And so, because it's only once every 4 years, it's the Olympics of classical music. And so I finished the suite, and I stood up and bowed, and walked off to get my pianist for the next piece. And I was like, what's on my eyelashes? And she goes, don't touch, don't touch. Because she had seen it from the wings. And she said, just close your eyes. And then she blew in my face and blew the glass off my face. And then afterwards, she told me what happened. And I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for hours about this competition. But in the final, I played the Barber Sonata as my American piece. I had 2 pieces that I chose American pieces, both of which I don't think the audience had ever heard. And when I had to play after the competition, this 3rd round of the competition is 2 concertos back to back. So my pianist from America flew back to America because she would rather be home than starving in the Soviet Union. So which we were starving. I mean, I lost 15 pounds in that month. It was just unbelievable. And I don't really have a lot of extra weight, so I was really skinny. But I was hungry all the time. But and so I played with a Russian pianist, and in this piece, in the middle of the first movement, in this big climax, all of a sudden the audience started screaming and applauding and stamping their feet. And I turned to the pianist and I said, don't they know it's not finished yet? And he said, oh no, they do. They just want you to go back and do that again because they liked it so much. And I was like, wow, oh, I love this. This is fun. It's like an interactive sport here. It's like but apparently what it was that, you know, in the 19th century, not only very much in opera, but also in recitals and instrumental music, it was very common because, you know, there wasn't recordings. And so if you happened to catch a performance of a piece, that was your one shot, probably in your lifetime, to hear it. So if there was something that you really liked, you just started clapping to make them do it again, so you get to hear it twice. And in Russia in 1986, that still persisted because it had been behind the Iron Curtain since 1917. And so it hadn't gone out of style yet like it had in the rest of the world. So I actually really loved it. I just thought that, I mean, I'm such a ham, I just was like, yeah, I'll definitely do it again. So yeah, so listen and see if you can figure out where it was that they did that. But just enjoy the music because it's so beautiful.